Over the last 10 years we've been growing a variety of vegetables, and we've noticed a gradual rise in the demand for water, and we have currently a small burn that we're directly connected to on the farm, and we also have a river which we are about 100 metres from, and I have to then go through a third person's land. So in sourcing water, although we had licences for both the burn and the river, we felt there was a vulnerability there and a risk there. So we decided that we would look at the option of putting more resilience into the system, and a lagoon, a water lagoon of some form, was going to be necessary. Because of the acreage of the vegetables required, we realised we needed a substantial lagoon and decided we needed one about 13,000 to 16,000 cubic metre. And we then looked and identified an area of the farm that could be used for that possibility. It's in the corner of the farm, and it was partly slightly poorer land. There was a natural dip to it, and we realised it was also an area where the soil was more clay than sand. The land around here is like a very sandy loam, ideal for vegetables, but sourcing clay might have been an issue. So we tried to identify an area that we thought would have a possibility of finding some clay deposits that we could use in the lining of the pond. A neighbour has a contracting business that have excavators, so we were able to use him, and he had one of his employees that had previously been involved in constructing a lagoon, and then we also used our own tractors and hired in some dump trailers, and we spent quite a lot of time working out where all this soil was going to go, and we knew that we could use the topsoil for some low-lying areas within the neighbouring field, and also on the area next to the lagoon there was an area that we could put a substantial amount of subsoil. Again, we're just trying to reduce the amount of haulage required to move this substantial amount of soil around. The cost would have been probably between £35,000 to £40,000 for a 16,000 cubic metre pond, and the grant for that was 30,000, a fixed 30,000, and we did have the option of lining it, but the cost there would have been substantial, certainly approaching six figures, and so we therefore were desperate to find clay and use clay to minimise the cost, because we're not fully dependent on the lagoon, but we wanted it to be as a backup to the burn and the river, and that if there was times when we couldn't abstract, we at least had another source of water. It's in a natural sink in this whole area, and so we noticed there is a flow of water drifting into this area throughout the winter. So we were able to probably achieve about 10,000 cubic metres, just natural inflow. We are also thinking of looking at the drains in this area and linking it into the lagoon. I'm very conscious that I don't want to upset the drains and limit their capacity to drain the nearby land, but it'd be an excellent resource to minimise my need to abstract from the burn through the spring period as I top up the lagoon. I've learned a lot about how water moves or doesn't move, and when we were digging it, we found a substantial amount of clay, like a third of it was clay. I maybe wish I'd done more test holes, because I discovered a huge amount of sand, so 2/3 of the pond was sand, and there was quite a steep learning curve as to how we used the soil. Some of the soil that was part clay, part sand, we used for building up some of the bankings before we put the clay liner on it. But there was another area of the farm that maybe I should have considered. We should maybe have done more test holes, but again, there was a main drain of the farm was going through it, so that's what put me off. So I think this lagoon is at the right site, and maybe in hindsight we should have done more test holes, but I guess you wonder how much you'd have done with all that information, and we were quite lucky in that we just had enough amount of clay to both line it and to put some clay trenches in some of the vulnerable areas. Initially, it was just going to be a straightforward lagoon with steep bank sides that were going to be tapered, and then on speaking to some of the growers that grow vegetables, they were wondering about how their pumps would be able to abstract easily. So we decided that to enable them to abstract and site their pump close to the water level, we would build a ramp. And it just meant that we didn't have to construct it, we just didn't dig that area out. We saw the potential to do it. And it's also quite a good area that if we ever have to go back in to the pond with a machine or that to sort something or tidy something up, then we've got a natural ramp to use. We immediately saw birds just come. Literally the day we walked away from here, birds were coming, and whenever we stopped any movement, the water level started to rise, and even today as we're filming this, there's been a wee group of swans arrive, which I've not seen. So it's been amazing, just that, the amount of wildlife that come and utilise it, and one of the ambitions is maybe we might get some fish in it eventually, you know. Maps were taken of the farm of all the vulnerabilities, and a case was made for why we should do this lagoon, and then an application was made into the Scottish Government for the grant, and one of the criteria was planning permission with the local council, and that was quite simple. We were able to it was automatically done, just a letter to confirm that we had planning permission, and then ensuring that we abide by the SEPA licences that we currently have, which allows abstraction from April to November. So any abstraction we would do, we would need to do in that period, or I then need to apply for an alteration of those licences to allow a winter fill. In looking at this, we had to ensure that the water would not go the other direction. We have an ability for an overflow, that if the lagoon was overfilled, that it would reach the burn, but that was never the plan. It would be a standalone. We have here some sandy soil that was predominantly what we found in at least 2/3, 3/4 of the area, and we tried to clean that out as much as possible, and we used that to build up a low area of the farm, which was just next door to the lagoon, and we removed the topsoil of that area and then put this sandy soil down to remove it and still create the field. And as well, we also found some pretty huge granite rocks that would have been washed down from the Lomond Hills at one point. But this is the clay that we, probably about a third, 25% of the volume area that we found at this end of the lagoon next to the burn, and it's kind of, there is particles of sand in it. It's sandy, silty clay. It's the best that we had, and it did stick together. It does stick together, as you can see, and we were able to use that in building some trenches, but also more importantly to line the lagoon. So this was very precious to us, because this otherwise we would have to buy in some other kind of form of lining to the lagoon. So we looked after this and valued this very highly, and then at the end we were able to go around the lagoon once it was constructed and line it with this type of soil.